can keep futzing around back there. If he gets us on, that's great. But I think otherwise we got to get this thing underway. So, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Garrison, you able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Louise, if you got the mic up at two. Yeah. No. Don't mess with the camera. The gooseneck microphone, the microphone that's.
Yeah.
No, I don't know why you're messing with the camera. Turn the camera back the way it was, because I've only got there we go. Now I've got everybody. I don't want that mic up to your laptop computer. It's
No. It fell, Mr. Examiner.
Okay.
I do not. Yeah. Try to get the mic up to it. That's what's happening.
Louis, it's only when you talk, is that when it reverberates?
So just hold the mic down to your laptop speakers there. It's not feeding back and reverberating now. Am I coming through over the PA in the room with the mic down there?
Not really.
Do you have the mic on, right? I can tell because I'm hearing
you
better.
Yes.
And I'm still coming through your laptop speakers?
Yes.
And you're holding the mic down there, and that's here we go again. And that's not helping, huh?
No.
Well, it seems like Mr. Rodriguez is hearing me where he's sitting through the laptop speaker, but I'm guessing the folks out in the gallery don't hear me that far out. Is that a fair assessment, or can we check with them?
Correct. You cannot hear him, the examiner.
How about if they move up to the table?
Yeah, just let's have them come up to the table then. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
Gotta improvise here. It's like every fourth hearing, everything falls apart in that stupid room. The messages I'm getting back from folks on the Zoom is that they're hearing me fine, which makes sense because we're all joined through the same system. It's just council chambers that is the problem. So, all right, can the two of you at the table now hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and call us to order at this point. I already sort of introduced myself earlier. I'm Jeff Capel. I'm the city's hearing examiner, and I'm calling this hearing to order at this point. This is the matter of the potential formation of a local improvement district. It's been assigned LID number 8668. LID stands for Local Improvement District, and that may be the last time you hear me calling it all out in full. Refer to it as LID from this point forward. I will note the stated purpose of this LID and its three segments. Oh, geez, what did we do different there?
I think it was Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to mute the council chambers at this point because we're not getting anything valuable out of that, and that'll take care of the feedback. Louise, I'm still coming through on your laptop speaker. You can just go like this. Yes. All right. Folks at the table, you can still hear me. Yes.
Can you still hear him?
Well, I got to be talking, I guess. So can you hear me at the table still?
Yes.
All right. So let's continue on then. LID 8668 is proposed to be for the construction of street pavement with structural section, curbs, gutters, and storm drainage for two of its segments. Oh, geez, we got people still joining here. for two of the segments, segment one being from Wapato Street from South 66th Street to South 68th Street, segment two being from North 27th Street from Carr Street west to the dead end, and then also with a third segment, which is for construction of alley pavement with a structural section and storm drainage. And segment three is located in the alley between Bell Street and Pacific Avenue from South 43rd Street to South 45th Street. I will note, late joiners, you didn't hear my instructions earlier, but you need to keep your audio and your video off until we get to the public testimony portion of the hearing. So if I just turned you off, that's just protocol. That's not me being, well, I don't know, maybe it is me being rude, but it's standard protocol that we only have on the screen folks who are going to be speaking, and we'll get to that portion of the hearing a little bit later. I will note this hearing is being held pursuant to Tacoma Municipal Code, which also gets abbreviated just like LID to TMC, TMC Chapter 123, Section 050, and also applicable provisions of the TMC relevant to local improvement district LID formation and TMC 10.04, and also governing state law, which is the Revised Code of Washington, or the RCW 3543. The thumbs up was for what now, given all the testing and things? Am I coming through in the room now?
Yes.
Oh God, don't do that. Whatever that was. I'm glad I'm coming through in the room. Louisa, when you're talking in your mic, though, we're still getting screechy. So unless you really need to say something, let's keep that mic off. Just for laughs, Mr. Rodriguez, why don't you turn your mic on? Let's see how well we're able to hear you. Is your mic on? Okay, so if I mute Council Chambers, we don't get you. So hang on. Asks unmute. Why is it doing that? I should just be able to mute and unmute that at will. I don't know why that is. Louisa, can you unmute the Council Chambers on the iPad up front, please? I can turn it off, but I can't turn it back on, I guess. I could just ask. Okay, Mr. Rodriguez, try it again.
Good evening, Mr. Examiner.
Can
you hear me now?
You're just fine. It's just something up front in the room that's screwy. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Coming through just great. No echo, no shrieks, no feedback. Just you, which is the way it should be. All right, so continuing on then, I will note that this hearing was set for today, February 10th, with the start time of 5 p.m. We're now at 5:22, unfortunately, because of technical difficulties in the council chambers. Luckily, yes, what is this? I don't know.
Yeah, Mr. Examiner, you're not coming through the speakers in the council chambers.
Okay, well, I thought I was a moment ago, but apparently I'm not again now. So you're still okay. You're still hearing me at the table, though. As long as you can hear me at the table, I don't care, because the gallery is empty at this point since we had everybody move up to the table. So I'm just gonna keep on keeping on. If for some reason you see my lips flapping up here and you can't hear me at all, then do another hand signal or something. But otherwise, we're gonna carry on. So I will note again that this hearing was set for today, February 10th, 2025. Start time of 5 p.m. We're a little bit beyond that now because of technical difficulties that we're working around, I guess, at this point. With the location noted as the City Council Chambers, or the Hall of Hell, as I like to call it, given all the problems that we have with our audio there. Fortunately, all of those of you who are participating by Zoom, which is about 16 of you at this point, are not having any of those problems, so that's great. Let me explain how we're going to proceed this evening. The way these things go is that once I'm done explaining how these things go, we move to a presentation from city staff explaining how the LID got to this point and where we're at this point. Sometimes I have questions of him. That's nothing unusual necessarily. And once that is done, then we move to the public testimony, public participation point of it. The testimony that the city staff offers is sworn testimony because it needs to be under oath and under penalty of perjury. I don't typically swear in people who are participating during the public testimony portion of it, because rather than being more factual and testimony that needs to be under oath and under penalty of perjury, it's more people just, folks who live in the potential LID saying, here's what our position is on it one way or the other, and that's fine. So city staff presentation, then public testimony. A lot of times during public testimony, there are questions that are asked. Those questions kind of just need to be posed. They're not answered at that point. We don't get into a back and forth exchange during the public testimony, usually. And then city staff typically will write those down because they're the ones usually best positioned to answer those questions. And then they will do that once public testimony is concluded and we go back to the city for rebuttal. Once rebuttal is done, if the city has a closing statement it wants to make, we allow that, and then we're done. So that's basically it. I don't typically answer questions unless it has to do with the process, because typically the factual questions are something that I don't necessarily have the information to answer, and that would be for Mr. Rodriguez or Mr. Garrison to answer anyway. So I will note that prior to today's hearing, the city submitted proposed exhibits, which is essentially the city's file and per hearing examiner rule of procedure. That city file comes in. Mr. Rodriguez, I presume that you're wanting your submitted exhibits C1 through C22 to be admitted, made part of the record. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So that motion will be granted. The city's exhibits C1 through C22 will be admitted and made part of the record. I will note that prior to today's hearing, we did get one protest letter from the Geraldine Maniatis, I think, Living Trust. And so that has been noted and recorded as a protest. We didn't have any other protests filed prior to tonight. And that leads to one additional explanation that I will give, and then we'll get underway with the city's presentation. The way state law works for LID formation like this, there isn't really a vote taken of for and against. It's just against. And if the people who are protesting formation of the LID, under state law, it's 60%. In Tacoma, we have a different guidance from a resolution that was passed by the city council many years ago at this point now, but it's still in effect. It's basically if protest rises to more than 50%, then typically the recommendation from me to the city council would be to not form the LID. So really, if you're here to say you're in favor of the LID, that's great. Ultimately, with how the state law works is that just means you're not protest, and we count up the protests after the evening is done and go from there. So that is the last of anything I had to offer. Mr. Rodriguez, do you have anything else procedurally or questions that you need to address before we get underway with your presentation?
No, sir, Mr. Examiner.
All right. So are you testifying first then for the city?
Yes, sir.
Are you wanting to make a separate opening statement, or should I just swear you in at this point?
You want to make a separate statement or just swear?
I'll go under oath, sir.
All right. If you raise your right hand, please. You swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give as part of this hearing this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Rodriguez. The mic
Thank
is
you.
yours.
This proposed local improvement district, as you had indicated earlier, contains 3 segments. Segments 1 and 2 are for Wapato Street from South 66th to South 68th Street and along North 27th Street from Carr Street west of the dead end. Those improvements are for street paving with a structural section, curbs and gutters, and storm drainage as required. Segment 3 is for the paving of the alley between Bell Street and Pacific Avenue from South 43rd Street to South 45th Street. That also has a structural section and storm drainage as required. Wapato Street from South 66th to South 68th Street. There was an interest in curbs, gutters, and paving with a structural section that went back to 1998. A gentleman by the name of Curtis Probst requested an advisory survey to improve Wapato Street from 66th to 68th. The advisory survey provided was never returned. And on April 19th, the city received a request from Annie Reagan, who was provided an LED packet, and that packet consisted of a cover letter, which is our Exhibit 2, a list of property owners, parcel numbers, owners' addresses, phone numbers, and estimated assessments, which is our Exhibit C3. The advisory survey number 6819 was returned with signatures representing 61.2% of the total estimated assessments for this particular segment, and that is our Exhibit C4.
That's for segment 1.
The right-of-way that is for segment 1, yes, sir.
Okay.
The right-of-way has an existing surface, which is oil mat, approximately 26 feet in width. The street does not contain any sidewalks. The improvement would be centered within the right-of-way. The street surface would be excavated sufficiently to allow 5 inches of ballast, 2.5 inches of crushed surfacing top course, 3 inches of asphalt, and with cement, concrete curb and gutter along both sides of the pavement. The planting strip, which is defined as the area between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter, and the sidewalk area will be excavated to a depth of 4 inches. Depending on the topography, it may be necessary to slope the right-of-way 2 feet towards the houses to provide a transition to the existing yards. The planting strip will be filled with topsoil and hydroseeded. Again, the new street surface will be centered within the Wapato Street right-of-way to an approximate width of 32 feet from face of curb to face of curb. Should this segment of the LID move forward, improvements within the right-of-way, such as driveways, floor elevations of garages, trees, mailboxes, utility poles, water meters, will be surveyed to assist in identifying any design challenges or items which may have to be relocated for the construction of the street. The assessments were calculated using a zone and termini method of assessment. For this particular segment, the total cost of the improvement is $440.85. The assessments are based on a rate of $190 per accessible unit of frontage, and they total $247,073.45, and the balance of $276,367.40 is being paid for through the Streets Initiative program. Today, we have received a call from Patricia Berge, thank you, and she's here in the audience. We discussed what the LID will do. I provided copies of the LID advisory survey, again, which is our exhibit number 2, the advisory survey ownership list, our exhibit number 3, assigned advisory survey, our exhibit number 4. And then I provided her a couple of additional information pieces, which were if she were to finance her assessment, what those assessments would look like, provided for the first 3 years. And then the council 3 years ago, I believe, for the last biennium, they appropriated funds for the LID assistance program. So I gave her a sample copy of what that might look like in the event that she feels that she might qualify for that. Typically, those applications are mailed out once the project is completed and when we go to final hearing. Segment number 2, which is North 27th Street from Carr west of the dead end. This street has been requested on numerous occasions. In 2013, an inquiry was made about the LID process. An advisory survey was never prepared. In 2017, advisory survey 8547 was prepared and mailed with an LID packet consisting of a cover letter, which is our exhibit C5, a list of property owners with estimated assessments, legal description, addresses, and phone numbers, which is our exhibit C6. And then in January of 21, their city received a request from a property owner. Let me back up. The advisory survey provided in 2017 was never returned to our office. So in January of 21, the city received a request and was provided an LID packet, consisted of a cover letter, which is our exhibit C7, a list of property owners with updated parcel assessments, parcel numbers, addresses, phone numbers, which is our exhibit C8, and advisory survey number 8653 was returned with signatures representing 91.2% of the total estimated assessments for 27th Street. And that is our exhibit C9. I would note for the record that there was a typo in reviewing the information. There was a typo on the advisory survey. If you look at it, it says 8553, and it should have been 8653. The description, the rate per accessible unit of frontage, the cover letter, all refers to 8653. There was just a typo on the advisory survey. The improvement would remove the oil mat asphalt surface. The street would, and we would excavate the area where the street improvements were proposed so that we would be able to add 5 inches of crushed ballast, 2.5 inches of crushed surfacing top course, 3 inches of asphalt with cement concrete curb and gutters along both sides of the street. The new street surface would be centered within the 27th Street right-of-way to an approximate width of 32 feet from face of curb to face of curb. This particular street right-of-way has sidewalk that is in various conditions. Owners will be provided the opportunity to have their sidewalk replaced as part of the project. The area between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter will be excavated, filled with topsoil and hydroseeded. The assessments were calculated using zone and termini, a modified zone and termini method of assessment, where only the abutting properties were part of the assessment district. The total cost for this segment as $343,660.30. The assessments were based on a rate per accessible unit of frontage of $200. The assessments total $126,530.80, with the Streets Initiative program contributing $217,129.50. On the 7th of February, our office received a letter from James Maniatis, who is a trustee for Geraldine Maniatis, and the address as 2702 North Carr. Calculating in and considering the level of protest, a protest for this particular segment currently stands at 7.9%.
Okay,
Moving
so
on
so
to segment.
Maniatis letter is for segment 2, then you've identified that property and that's within segment 2.
So Maniatis is for 2. Yes.
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
thanks, Louisa. I couldn't. So segment 3 is for the alley between Bell Street and Pacific Avenue from South 43rd to South 45th Street. This year, this alley has had a number of requests for to improve the alley with 2 inches of asphalt wedged curbs, 2.5 inches of crushed surfacing top course, and 5 inches of ballast. In March of 2000, we provided advisory survey 7932. On July 2006, we provided advisory survey 8327. And on April 2012, we provided advisory survey 8451. These 3 advisory surveys were never returned. On November 18th, on November 2018, we provided advisory survey 8599, which was returned with 55.26%. The existing surface is gravel, approximately 12 feet in width, within a 20-foot right-of-way. The department will strive to obtain a driving surface of 14 feet with asphalt wedge curbs on either side for a total paved width of 16 feet. Without the right-of-way being surveyed, I cannot predict if there's going to be any challenges. So the actual width may shrink, but we won't know that until we obtain survey information. The assessments were calculated using a modified zone and termini method of assessment, including only properties abutting the alley right-of-way. On January 25th and January 27th, I received a request from Evan I know I'm going to butcher his last name and I apologize, but Eishleman. His address is 4322 South Bell Street. I provided Evan a copy of the signed advisory survey, which is our exhibit C14, and the AUF calculations for his parcel, which determine the estimated amount of assessment. The total cost for this improvement is $408,330.60, with the assessments being based on a rate of accessible unit frontage of $425. The Public Works Department requested of the City Council on December 17th of 2024, which is our exhibit C15, to set this formation hearing date, time, and hour. The City Council adopted Resolution 41592, which is our exhibit C16, setting the formation hearing for LID 8668 for today, February 10th, 2025 at 5 p.m. The resolution was published in the Tacoma Daily Index on January 9th and January 10th of 2025, and that's in our Exhibit C17. Hearing notices with a link for this hearing were mailed to property owners of record on January 10th, 2025. The master hearing notice is our Exhibit C18. The mailing list containing property owners, mailing and site addresses, legal descriptions of the parcels within the local improvement district, estimated amount of assessments is our Exhibit C19, and the department provided a certification of mailing of the hearing notices, and that's our Exhibit C20. A copy of the assessment roll is Exhibit C21, and on the assessment roll, it notes the parcel number, the taxpayer, the mailing and site address, description of the property being assessed, the estimated assessment based on an estimated rate of assessable units of frontage. A copy of the assessment map is our Exhibit C22, noting the parcels within the LID being specially benefited from this improvement. And our Exhibit C1 is a 2-page summary of the information that I provided to you, Mr. Examiner. And that concludes my report.
All right. No additional witnesses then for the city?
No, sir.
And just to confirm then, going into this evening, there were no recorded protests for segment 1, correct?
No protest.
No, sir.
And 1 for segment 2,
Yes, sir.
and none for segment 3.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay, I guess we'll see where we are by the end of the evening. So at this point, we're going to move to the public testimony portion of the hearing. Are the 2 people sitting at the table wanting to testify, or are you just there to observe tonight, or do you want to be on the record?
Yeah.
I had intended to, okay, I had intended to testify, but Mr. Rodriguez answered my questions and my concerns. And I just want to thank him for doing a really thorough job and patience. He took a lot of time. I appreciate it.
Could you give your name?
My name is Patricia Berge,
Okay.
and my address is 6638 South Wapato Street.
And the gentleman to your, I guess it would be your right. Are you wanting to testify this evening?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I presume you've signed on to the sign-up sheet then?
Yes.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We've got 1 person in the room who's wanting to testify. We're going to take a short recess, and I am going to make sure that everyone online has the ability to chat still, and you do. People online who are wanting to testify, what I want you to do is use the chat function, put your name, your address, and preferably your email address in there during our recess that we're going to take. And then when we come back, I will have that as my sign-up list for everybody online who is wanting to testify this evening. And then we'll go ahead and do that. We'll have the 1 person in the room, and Ms. Berge, I guess if you change your mind, you can still testify too if you want. But otherwise, I'm sure we're going to have a few people online who are going to want to do that. Please do that again by using the chat function online. So for those of you on Zoom, if you put your cursor over into the Zoom screen, there'll be a little little speaker balloon like in the cartoons down there that says chat, and go in there and sign up your name and put your name and your address and your email address, please. Yeah, so there are a couple of people who said, I'm not sure what segment I'm in, but I'm on Wapato Street. You want to protest. If you just want to protest registered and you don't want to testify, you can do that by just saying so in the chat box. We've had one person who's done it already. Um, if you need to put your address down though, so that I can figure out what segment you're in, please, because that makes a difference. So Daniel Trollinger, you said you want to protest. You're on Wapato Street. I presume you know your address, so you're going to need to add that in there, please. Well, actually, maybe not. I've got your name. We can figure it out from there. You go. Got your address now. So we're going to recess for 10 minutes. If you're online in Zoom and you want to testify or you want to just put a protest message in there, please do that in the chat. We'll come back in 10 minutes. It's 5:50 now. We'll come back at 6 o'clock and go into the public testimony portion of the hearing after everybody's had a chance to sign up. I'm going to mute my audio and video during the break. Please use the chat to sign up. We'll be back at 6 o'clock. All right, by my official computer clock, it is now 6. Folks at the table, are you able to hear me still? All right, I see heads nodding. That's great. So I'm going to explain just a moment, a couple of things that might help. As I mentioned going in, the way state law looks at LID formation, typically whether something is recommended for formation or not depends on the level of protest. And it really doesn't matter why you're protesting. You don't have to explain that. You don't have to justify it. If you're against it, you're against it. It just goes in the protest column. And under state law, if the level of protest rises to 60%, then state law says really that LID should not be formed. As I mentioned, in Tacoma, we have a resolution guidance from the city council that basically says if the protest exceeds 50%, except under certain specific circumstances, which I don't think are present, or at least they weren't mentioned in the city's presentation here, that LID typically should not be formed if there's essentially a majority +1 against formation. And so I mention that because there are a number of you in the chat box during the break you've put your names in and your addresses and email addresses. Perfectly done. Thank you. And said, I'm protesting. You'll go down as a protest then. And we have that. I have that in the record. Everything that goes in the chat box during this comes to me as a text file. So I have all of that afterwards. I've gone through them here in the last few minutes of the break, and I've written everybody down anyway as a backup. So I will go through those here in just a moment. If there's more you'd like to say, you certainly can. But like I said, you don't have to justify your protest. If you say I'm protesting, it's down as a protest. It will be calculated into that percentage to see if it rises to 50% or not. I probably am not going to know that tonight because I have to go back and I have to look at all the numbers, the number of owners, the percentage of assessment and all of that, because it's really 50% of the assessments for those improvements, and that's done on an estimate at this point, but that's where it goes. So it's not just a strict number count. If there's, for illustration, not that we have this, if there's 5 people in an LID, a proposed LID, and 3 people protest, then that's about 50%. It's based more on what the value of the assessments is. So there's some math that has to be done, and I can't do that on the fly. So if you want to still testify, you can. But like I said, you don't have to justify your protest. So at this point now, in the chat box, I have Daniel Trulinger. Yes, who has said he wants to protest. Got that down. I have you noted as a protest. I have Mike and Ginny Agnew also down as a protest. Yes, you're down as a protest. I have 2 different messages from you in there, so I had to marry those 2 up. I have Ty Minkler down as a protest. And if I have your address, we'll know which segment you're in, so that'll all be sorted out. I have Edward Howell and April Davis, 2620 North Carr Street, who are saying you'd like more information before you protest or not. You can do that. I'm going to leave the record open for a week. So, if you want to send something to my office, CCing Mr. Rodriguez, after you've made up your minds on that, we'll have that down. And I'm proposing to wait a week. But my role in this, I should have explained this probably a little bit more at the outset. My role is as the city council's hearing officer for this proposed LID formation. I am not the decision maker. But what council does is the city council designates me to conduct the required public hearing, which we're doing right now, despite all of our difficulties with the audio in the room. And then what I do at some point is I just kind of cut things off and I say, here's the amount of protest we have. I have all the information the city submitted. I have the public testimony. And then I make a recommendation, which includes findings of fact and conclusions of law. And the big conclusion of law in a formation is, where does the protest come out? And based on that amount of protest, should the LID be formed or should it not? And that's how I do it. Unfortunately, state law really says protests can continue to come in. And so for me, it's kind of a cat herding exercise. At some point, I have to cut it off and write my recommendation and send it to the council. But certainly folks like Edward Howell and April Davis, you can talk to Mr. Rodriguez. You can't talk to me because I'm not supposed to talk to anybody outside of the official proceeding. But you can talk to Mr. Rodriguez and you can submit something to my office when you've made up your minds. Unless you make up your mind before the evening is done here with the hearing, you won't go down as a protest until you submit something to my office if you decide to protest. So let's see. Somebody who's showing on the screen is KAY dash the letter K. It says for segment 2, Carr Street, most of the residents were of the belief that the power lines would be buried. If that's no longer the case, some of us may no longer support this project. So you'll need to figure that out and decide, and you can submit something to my office within the window that I'm going to give you before I start writing my recommendation. I have Lana Cooper, Hazel Garrity, and Joe Gill, segment 3. Okay, I'm reading further down. It says we protest, so I'll have you down as protests. Lots of questions that I can't answer for you, but I can pose those to Mr. Rodriguez, or you can if you want to testify. We've got the hearing examiner email address posted in the chat. That'll be, you can use that to let us know when you want to at some point. Please don't post evidence in the chat room. The chat room really at this point is just to say you want to testify or you want to register a protest. We can't turn that into its own little sidebar conversation. So please don't. I have people posting documents and stuff in there. If you don't stop doing that, I'm going to have to turn the chat off, because we can't have that turn into its own sidebar conversation. That just is far too messy for this type of a hearing. So so here's what we're going to do. We're going to have the gentleman in the room who wants to testify. We're going to have him go first. And then I'm going to go back to the chat, and I'm just going to call out names of people who've put something in there. If you want to still testify, we'll do that at that point. But please do not use the chat for chat. It's just for you to sign up or register your protests. So, you know, Kara Sale, you've posted a couple documents up there. I don't know what those are. I'm not going to take those off the chat. That's not what the chat is for. If you want to submit those to my office, I guess you can. But, you know, again, really the only thing that we're looking at here in a formation hearing is, are you protesting or are you not? If you're for the formation of the LID, you can say that too, but what that means is just that you're not a protest. So I'm going to go into the public testimony portion at this point. Starting with in the room, gentleman there at the end of the table. You're, I guess, kind of at the north end of the table, I think, because the directions are all backwards from where I'm at. For you, I guess it would be your right side. If you want to turn on the mic, test that out, make sure we can hear you out here.
Oh,
Perfect. So I'm going to have you go first, and if you would start by giving your name and your address, that would be fantastic.
James Manatas, trustee for the Geraldine Manatas Living Trust, 2702 North Carr Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98403.
Okay, we already have a letter in protest from you, so you've already been counted as a protest. Unless you're changing your mind, we've got you down for that, but you can certainly tell us what you want me to know for this at this point.
Thank you. No, I have not changed my mind.
Okay.
One point of clarification. How many more protests came in for segment 2 just today? Just
I'm
from
not
the
going to be
online
able, I'm
people?
not going to be able to give you that. I went through the list just now here. That's all I have, but I'm not going to keep doing a running tally through this hearing. You'll have to see what the final tally is when I issue my written recommendation.
Okay, well, I believe it was Minkler and Davis names, and I was familiar with those, so. Okay,
I
so you have my
input.
letter.
Yep.
In addition to that, I'd just like to add that everyone else on this street accesses their home on 27th Street, this improvement for the paved road. They will all use that road to access their homes except us at 2702 North Carr. Our driveway is on Carr Street. So we have no access, we have no reason to access, drive this road, yet we're being forced to improve it. Feel that is wrong. As far as adding significant value to our property, I do not believe it does. I've got real estate agents that are going to testify it does not. In 2017, there were 2 new homes built to the west of us. At that time, it was required that they put in a new curb or a curb. There was no curb existing. So a curb was installed along the full 50 feet of our property. And it's only 7 years old. It's in fine shape. So again, we're not receiving any additional work in a curb. Thirdly, this is in a trust. My mother's passed away. There's 4 beneficiaries to this trust. 3 of them do not reside at this address, yet the trust will be paying this out, and it's less money for them. So they're impacted. You're impacting 3 other people that do not currently reside at this address. I also challenge the methodology of how this assessment came about, where people on this street own 150 feet of property and they're paying less per foot than we would be paying. So I guess I understand this is a numbers game and it's going to pass on that. And my next will be a legal process to challenge the assessment, I guess, once this list passes. Thank you.
And just for informational purposes, the estimated assessments are just that. At this stage, they are estimated. Challenging benefit to a property or challenging the assessment. That's something that it sounds like you've already ascertained this, but I'm just putting the fine point on it for everybody else's information. Those challenges would come at the finalization of the assessment roll stage if the LID does get formed. So, thank you. Did read your letter before it came in. You kind of restated that here, so we have you on record as a protest. Ms. Berge, you're still okay with not testifying then?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. So I am going to go down then the folks who are in the chat at this point to see if they still want to, if they're wanting to testify, because nobody really indicated you wanted to testify. We just got a lot of people saying where their position was in the chat box. And I've got that, and that will be part of the record now. But whether you want to testify or not really apparent from what most people wrote in the chat boxes. So let's do a second round then. I have everything you put in the chat box. If you're wanting to testify still, please put that in the chat box now. And then I will call on you one by one. You don't have to testify. Again, like I said, you know, Mr. Maniatis here just a moment ago sort of explained why he's protesting, and that's fine, and that's part of the record. But you don't have to justify it. Protest is a protest. All right, so I have a participant whose screen name is Lana. So we're going to take you first, and I'm going to clear you to unmute and turn on your video. Looks like maybe you don't have video capability. Well, actually, I'm just going to turn that on for everybody. Hang on just a moment. I'm turning this back on so that everybody who's participating should be able to start their video and unmute themselves. So that might make it a little bit easier for you to join by video. Yeah. There we go. So if you would, unless you already did it, did you already give your name and your, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Sure
Okay.
can.
So I'm Lana Cooper. I'm at the segment 3. And I wanted to say that me and my mom has 2 parcels. She's right here as well. And my neighbor Joe, who has 1 parcel, that would be 4 parcels on segment 3, and we're against. I'm the one that had a lot of questions.
Okay,
Which,
so hey, hold on. Like I said, I don't typically get into a back and forth on this. I just let you testify, but I want to make sure that I've got the protest registered. So you're saying that Joe Gill
yes,
is wanting to go down as a protest,
yes,
and you, Lana Cooper, are protest,
yes. And then my mom, who has 2 parcels.
and that's Hazel.
Yes,
Okay,
right here.
I probably mispronounced your last name before.
Charity.
Charity. Okay. All right. I've got you all down as protest then.
Yeah, we were kind of for it until we got the sticker price, and then we went into shock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
And that may or may not end up being the price, because like I said, that's an estimate at this point. If you want to pose your questions that you had, Mr.
Yeah.
Rodriguez could maybe address them in his rebuttal, but
Well, are there additional, like I heard you say that there's assistance program for one woman. Are there more assistance programs, or are there additional state or federal grants that could be applied to this project?
and like I said, I'm going to let the questions be posed. Mr. Rodriguez then will address those in the rebuttal section. We don't get into a back and forth
Okay.
during the testimony, but it's a valid question.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add to the record tonight?
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Thank you then for your testimony.
Yeah, you're doing a nice job.
And I'm going to put you back off the screen now. Okay. And Lana, we have Jessica Berg then. Ms. Berg, you should be able to unmute yourself and join us on the screen. And I will click my buttons too that make doubly sure you can do that. Can you join us please then?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. You'd
No.
identify yourself. Your screen name is showing as Jessica Berg.
Correct. That's my wife. This is Brian Berg.
Okay. Brian with an I or a Y?
With an I.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Berg.
Yes, just in testimony for segment 2, we've lived on 27th Street here for, I guess, 26 years. And I completely understand those neighbors, and one is right next door, and they recently had sidewalks put in. And I understand that there could certainly be that the LID might not get formed on this block. I guess my concern is the upper segment of the block is really in very poor condition. There's safety concerns as well as a multitude of other things. I guess I'm just concerned, what are the other options if the LID doesn't get formed?
Okay, and Mr. Rodriguez will have to address that.
Okay, and that's kind of what I was thinking. So, and that's fine.
So Mr. Berg, are you lodging a protest or not?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So not a protest. So we won't count you as one. So like I said, the only thing we tally up is the protests at this stage. So
Understand.
thank you for posing the question. I'll have to pitch that to Mr. Rodriguez. Anything else that you wanted to add to the record tonight?
No, much appreciated.
All right. Thank you very much then for your questions and testimony. And we will
Thank you.
move to the next person. All right. So we have Ted Howell, who is wanting to ask a question. And then Mike and Ginny Agnew posted again. You said, commented above that our tenant was opposed, but you apparently have not received his letter. If you, Mike and Ginny Agnew, are the property owners, if you're wanting to protest, you've done that tonight. We don't need anything from your tenant. This goes by the property owners of record. So if that is you, we have you down as protesting tonight. If you still want to testify, you can. But I'm going to move to Ted Howell now. Find you. Oh, good. You're joining us, or almost.
I am. Can you, whoops. You can hear me now. Let's see if I can turn the video on. Hi,
There you go.
I am Ted's wife, April Davis,
April Davis.
and I want to ask a clarifying question or two for Mr. Rodriguez to help us with later. I've heard from my neighbors up and down the hill, we're in segment 2, about this, and there's the people across the street from us either have no sidewalk and no street involvement at all, and so shouldn't have to pay anything, or just got new sidewalks and so shouldn't have to pay anything. And ideally, and I heard you say at the beginning that people could get new sidewalks as part of this process. So say
you didn't hear me say that, but if you're
I heard
talking
something.
Mr. Rodriguez, then
Yeah, maybe it was Rodriguez. So I don't understand, like, is protesting the lid different from some opting in process or opting out process that they could do later, based on whether or not they had need for the sidewalk. And also, I think somebody might have asked in this chat about the burying of the power lines. We haven't looked at the documents yet. We'll have to talk to Mr. Rodriguez, but that I think that's another thing that we would want to clarify. And would that be, that also sounds like something that would come after the lid is actually approved, where we look into the more of the details, which seems like a little bit of a weird process to me, but I just wanted to clarify that we don't know for sure now if the power lines would be buried or not as part of this, or is there some answer to that in the document, the exhibits that we haven't looked at ourselves
Well,
yet?
in what city staff submitted to my office, there was no mention of undergrounding being part of the scope
Okay.
of work of this LID. Mr. Rodriguez can address that in his rebuttal too, but there was nothing mentioned in overhead or undergrounding. Undergrounding power lines can be part of an LID. We just had a hearing last month on an undergrounding LID, but that was not mentioned in the scope of anything that was submitted in my office, or if it wasn't,
Okay.
missed it. But
Does that make it too late? Does that mean we've missed the boat on power lines in this LID?
I'm going to let Mr. Rodriguez address that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else you want to add to the record then?
No,
So for my clarification then, are you registering a protest at this point, or are you?
I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, so no
Yeah.
protest. And I'm going to address some more opportunity possibly for that by leaving the record open just in case. Let's see. Daniel Trollinger then. It looks like you're next. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If not, you'll tell me. So I'm going to make sure that you're doubly cleared to join us on the screen with your audio. Daniel Trollinger. Looks like your audio has been engaged. You should be able to start your video too. Whenever you're ready. You're not showing as muted anymore, but I can't hear you. Last person I had online, Daniel Trollinger, said Daniel wants to testify. You're showing as unmuted, and I have cleared you to start video, but we're not hearing you or seeing you. That's no worries, Mr. Trollinger. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. You know, we've had plenty of technical difficulties tonight in the council chambers with the folks who are in the room. So no need for apologies. I feel like I should be apologizing over and over for the technology not working in the room, but every time we think we've got one bug figured out in the room, then something else pops up. The whole reason that I am running the hearing from offsite is because that has typically worked better for the Zoom aspect of the hearing. So, Mr. Trollinger, I'm going to propose this. Why don't you put down whatever it is that you want me to know in an email to my office and send it in, since we can't hear you this evening for whatever reason. And I'm going to leave the record open for this hearing for people to send in emails or letters or whatever, probably for a week. We'll address that at the very end of the hearing. But what we're going to do right now, since I don't have anybody else signed up at this point, I'm going to call the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. And we're going to move to the city's rebuttal at this point. So, Mr. Rodriguez, you're still under oath. If you would please turn your microphone back on, and whatever you have for us by way of rebuttal, now is the time.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Hopefully I captured all of those questions. From Ms. Cooper, I understand that she asked if there were any federal grants or state grants for local improvement districts. And then she was concerned about the costs. Got some sticker shock, I believe her comments were, that she stated. To my knowledge, for these type of improvements, which are residential in nature, there are no state or federal grants that are available. She may, or any property owner may qualify for LID assistance. And so the basic premise on that is that you must be a property owner. Your income must be less than X amount of dollars, and that varies depending on family size. And those applications would be mailed at the final hearing notice. So after the work is completed and once we know what the final costs are. So that will be made to everybody involved in this local improvement district. When the requester requested the advisory survey, we provided a LID packet of information. Included in that packet, and again, it's our exhibit number 13, was a list of all of the property owners and what their estimated amount of assessments are. And from the time that advisory survey was circulated to today, those numbers, those assessments have not changed. So one of the reasons for the hearing, as you have indicated previously, is to inform the property owners. I don't know what folks tell or say to their neighbors when they're circulating the advisory survey. The purpose for the hearing is to provide information and allow folks to make an informed decision. Again, that was that information was in our exhibit number 13. Moving on to Mr. Berg's question, that the street is in poor conditions and what other options there are. Basically, for the westerly end, the city of Tacoma has a streets initiative program. I know that they have identified streets in various areas of town. If this local improvement district does not move forward, I will provide this street's location to the program manager. And in the future, they may be able to get it paved. But that would be a number of years down the road. Ted Powell, I believe, was on segment 2, and I was trying to identify what property they owned. I don't see a Powell in any of the documents that I have as a property owner.
I think it's Edward Howell, Howell, and April Davis, 2620 North Carr Street. So not Powell, but Howell, like Howl at the Moon.
I see a Davis.
Not spelled that way, of course. But, yeah.
So,
and Ms. Davis testified. So
my recollection is that abutting their property, their sidewalk is old and in not very good condition. If this local improvement district moves forward, they can, as quote unquote supplemental work or requested additional work, can have that sidewalk removed and replaced. They also mentioned about burying of the power lines. The utility lines that are on the north side of 27th could also be buried as supplemental work. And so if this LID moves forward, and that is something that the property owners want, we can provide an estimated cost to bury those utility lines, do that in conjunction with the paving project. But that would be in addition to and a supplemental cost to those property owners that are willing to pay for that.
So just to clarify, undergrounding overhead lines right now is not included in the scope of this LID for any of the segments, correct?
That is correct. That is correct. So I'm treating the utility lines on North 27th similar to a sidewalk, a driveway approach, a sewer connection, a water line connection. And so that body of work could be done as supplemental work, as requested additional work.
Anything
We do
else?
have, and Mr. Examiner, we do have, there was an alley that we paved, north 28th to 29th off of,
30th to 31st Mason to
no,
where we did the sidewalk in front.
where we buried the utility lines.
It was
McCarver?
Carter Street,
No,
Star Street.
Star. So a number of years ago, there was an alley that we paved, north 28th to 29th off of Star, to the east. And a group of property owners came to us and wanted their utility lines buried. And so we did that as supplemental work. That was not assessed throughout the district. Only property owners that agreed to bury those utility lines, that was added to their LID assessments.
And everybody out in Zoom, I've got to ask that you cut off with the chat. Public testimony portion was over. If we keep throwing stuff in there, you know, this is the herding cats exercise that I told you about. The questions that have been posed at this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Rodriguez, but I'm going to leave the record open, and additional questions that you have at this point now, rather than continuing to use the chat for chatting, which I said was not what it's for purpose of this hearing. I'm going to leave the record open. You can contact Mr. Rodriguez and talk to him more about this for the week that I'm going to leave the record open. And then if that changes your mind somehow, you know, and you protested, you want to withdraw it, or if you didn't protest tonight, but you want to before that week is up, you'll still have the opportunity to do that. But public testimony portion ended. Everybody thought we were done, and now I'm getting a bunch of additional questions thrown in the chat box. Please do not do that, or I'm going to have to turn it off. All right, Mr. Rodriguez, were you finished with your rebuttal, or where are you at?
Yes, sir, I am.
So undergrounding overhead lines is not in the scope of the LID for any of these. Property owners could request that work be done, but it would be an additional cost to the property owners who are asking for it as part of the LID. Questions that have been posed, Mr. Rodriguez, I'm just going to ask here for clarification on a couple of things. The question was asked, are protests counted by segment or the total LID?
They are calculated by segment.
Okay. If one segment fails due to protests rising above 50%, do the rest of the segments go forward?
Yes, sir, they can and will, should.
And that is typically how it works. Mr. Howell is asking for clarification, or maybe it's Ms. Davis, I don't know. But either way, wanting clarification that replacing sidewalks in segment 2 is not included in the LID scope, or it is?
It is not.
Okay. And along Carr Street, also, again, no sidewalks or sewer lines, correct? They're not part of the scope.
Correct.
All right. So I think that answers all the questions then. Is the city wishing to make a closing statement? And I know it's going to be kind of hard to state a city position on the level of protest because I think we still got to figure that out at this point. It's not what it was coming into this evening.
So coming into this evening, based on the level of protest, and basically we received one, which was on segment number 2, being 7.9%. Segment 1 and segment 3 were both 0%. So based on the pre-hearing level of protest, the department recommends formation of all 3 segments of this local improvement district.
That conclude everything for the city then?
Yes, it does.
I'll talk closer into my microphone. Maybe we'll get better pickup in the room that way. So here's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Come
He's
on.
not on.
Okay.
Technology is great when it works.
All right. Can you hear me back in the room again?
Yes.
I see heads nodding. One of those nights with the technology, my goodness. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to leave the record open. Today is the 10th. So next Monday would be what, the 17th? Yeah, just for cushion's sake, I'm going to leave the record open until close of business on the 18th. So we've got a week from now and an extra day. And any of you out in any of the segments, if you want to submit something to my office, you could submit it in support of the LIDs. You could submit it in protest, whatever. You're certainly welcome to try to contact Mr. Rodriguez. Hopefully he'll be answering his phone. If you want more information about things before you decide, you can do that. And I'm going to wait until the 18th to start writing the recommendation on this. And I'm going to use the percentages of protest on the 18th. All right. So I have numbers down today. If you want to make doubly sure you're in there, you can submit an email to my office if you want. But from tonight, these are the protests that I think I have, and I'll double check that in the chat box here in a minute. I have Aishleman, I have Trollinger, I have Agnew, I have Maniatis, I have Cooper, Gill, Gierde, all down as protests. Oh, and Singh. Did I say Singh twice? I have all those down as protests from tonight. And I will count those as protests unless for some reason you talk to Mr. Rodriguez and you change your mind, you submit something prior to the 18th. If there are new protests that come in, I'm going to leave that open until the 18th. And then I will write my recommendation. And that recommendation then goes to city council and it gets scheduled to be heard on a city council Tuesday night regularly convened meeting. There is, after my recommendation issues, there is a process through Tacoma Municipal Code 1.70 to appeal the recommendation, which is really kind of weird verbiage because it's only a recommendation, it's not a decision. Usually when you're appealing something, it's because something's been decided. What that TMC process is really is for a way for you to be heard by the council on the way to the council making its decision. And this information about the TMC 170 so-called appeal thing will be on the last page of the recommendation too. So that's how it goes. I put together the recommendation. I have to have a cutoff at some point. The state statute really allows for things to be nutty until I think like 30 days after the ordinance is passed even. But I have to have a cutoff point to make the recommendation. I'm going to do that on the 18th. So that's where that's at. My office's email address was put in the chat box. It's real easy. It's just hearing.examiner@cityoftacoma, all one word, .org. It's in the chat box too. You can mail things. You could drop them off at the Tacoma Municipal Building if you want as well, as long as it gets to me before the 18th. I will make the calculations based on what I have at this point. I will probably submit that updated information to Mr. Rodriguez and make sure that his calculations can comport with mine. And then, like I said, that recommendation will get written up, will go to the city council, and then the city council will ultimately make its decision. So that is where that is at. And I appreciate all of you being here this evening. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Thank you for bearing with us on that. But I think we're at the point where we are ready to close and be off the record, unless Mr. Rodriguez has anything else that needs to be addressed from the city, either question-wise or procedurally, before we wrap things up tonight. Mr. Rodriguez?
No, Mr. Examiner, I do not have anything further.
I'm not hearing you. Is your mic on?
No, Mr. Examiner, I don't have anything further. And just one last
Mr.
parting
Rodriguez, I didn't
comment
hear you
is
if
that
you had something else
I
to
would
put on the record.
ask that the exhibits be entered in as into the record.
Can't hear you. See, and that's weird because the people out in Zoom land are saying they can hear you, but I can't now.
Can try
Which I
again.
guess is sort of par for the course this evening.
Ask if he can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No, I still can't.
Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear you.
No. Can't. 'Cause I unmuted my.
Ms. Legg, can you serve as a go-between there? You're muted now. You want to turn your DS mic on? Maybe we can hear you through that.
Can you hear me now? Mr. Examiner? You can't hear me. I'm unmuted.
When the recommendation issues, somebody in Zoom asked us, the Ag News asked, how do you get the results of the recommendation? If you are a property owner in the LID, if we have your information, it'll be emailed to you as a scanned document when it's issued. So please use my office's email address that was given to everybody and send me yours. And then that will make sure you're on the list to get it when it comes out. If we don't have your email address, we'll have to snail mail it out, but that means you'll get it, however many days it takes USPS to get it to you, which is not the same as getting it the day it's issued. But that's all we can do. But all the property owners will either emailed it or sent by snail mail.
Mr. Examiner, can you hear me?
I don't have anything else at this point, and I can't hear anybody else at this point anyway, apparently. So, yeah, it would, well, I see people putting email addresses into the chat box. I will have all those. That's fine. You can also email them to my office's email. So Without being able to hear Mr. Rodriguez, I think we're ready to call it. Thank you again for participating this evening. Appreciate all the questions and the testimony. And probably within about a week's time from when we close the record on the 18th, the recommendation will issue. So look for it around a week after the 18th. So I guess what would that be? The 25th, 26th, around that range. Okay, so, all right, Andrea is texting me now in the chat box. Mr. Rodriguez had nothing further and wanted to make sure the city's exhibits were entered. Yes, they were. So with that, we will be concluded then. Thank you all for your patience this evening. And like I said, around the 25th, 26th, sometime around then, look for the recommendation to be issued, and then it'll be scheduled for council after that. So again, thank you for your participation. I wish you all a good rest of your evening. With that, we'll be concluded and off the record.